Really? Let's have a word of prayer. Lord God, thank you so much for giving us this time together, and bless us as we study your word. In the name of Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Now, I got to tell you something. Hugh and Bob, when you took your hats off, which I think is very appropriate, a terrible, terrible thought went through my head as soon as I started praying.
What, kind of blinded you?
No. It wasn't that, because I am with you. I am one of the club.
Blind anybody.
Would it be appropriate? And I'm serious. It just passed through my mind. If you're wearing a toupee, would it be appropriate to take the toupee off?
No.
They consider that part of your head.
Yeah.
But it isn't.
Cover.
It's cover.
It's but it's not attached.
No, but
see?
generally when they make the announcement, please remove the cover.
Then you should do it.
Then you should do
I'm
it.
not saying that. I'm just saying.
Right, but that's if I
Not
say,
even in the military do you
please.
pay off.
I'll tell you what.
Okay.
If I got a wig on and they say take your cover off, that sucker's staying on.
You're not going to take your wig off? Okay.
No.
Well, that's
and I have worn them lots of times. I never took it off, except when I fell one time bowling.
Then it flew off.
Yeah, I know. I had shorts on, and I said to the girls, because I always had such a high backswing, and I always kicked my leg up real far, and I said, got quite a crowd standing back of me. I said, can you see anything when I bowl? And they said, no, you can't. I said, okay. Well, yes, you could. And when I heard a remark, I stepped in a bowling bag and got it tangled in between my feet, and down I went.
Oh, that's not good.
When I got up, it didn't get hurt.
Oh.
When I got up, of course, everything was just askew. So, being me, I had to stand there and face the crowd of guys that was watching, adjust everything, adjust those, and go like that, and I got a hand, and then they left.
That would do it. I'd give you a hand.
Take a bow.
I saw a friend of mine, and it was a paraplegic. That guy couldn't move his arms, his legs in a wheelchair, and he's got a toupee on. And my buddy hadn't seen him for a while, and he walked up and smacked him on the back. Oh, Joe! And that thing slid. Now, my friend is one of these guys. I mean, he tried every way in the world to get that back to where it was. And the guy kept saying, drop it in my lap, drop it in my lap. Because it was causing a lot more attention.
As he was trying to get it straight.
I mean, he's twisting and he's going like this. And finally, the guy kept saying, drop it in my lap, drop it in my lap. So he put it down.
How funny, the poor guy. That's kind of like I had too.
Well, that's what. Okay, anyway, we have established then the toupee. You do not need to remove a toupee. All right. Talking about Christianity, what baseline, what are some things all Christians believe? God. Jesus.
Communion.
Whatever.
Resurrection.
Communion. Baptism. Trinity. Good. Okay, Trinity, because you were doing three.
She was up at 3
and I wasn't sure. Okay. Future. What about future?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
After the resurrection. Yeah.
Sacred book.
Bible.
Okay. All right. So we established that we talked about different branches of Christianity, beginning with. Judaism is sort of the beginning, but we haven't talked. We talked about Catholicism, Eastern Orthodox, all of them, the same idea, these same concepts, just spinning it, a little way, or using it, or conveying it to their culture in a certain way. Perfect storm. And these exist for 1,000 years. Have a perfect storm in the 15th, 16th century.
Plague.
What's that?
The
plague. You got, what else? Movable type.
Paper.
What else? Paper. You got,
paper.
Everything comes together. And all of a sudden you have Reformation. Because people start
Thinking.
Thinking and reading.
Yeah.
Okay, they start thinking and reading.
thinking, yeah.
And as soon as they start reading, the first book that they print is the Bible. They start reading the Bible. And in Eastern Orthodoxy and Roman Catholicism, this was sort of given to a pre-literate people. So it was the ceremonies, it was the sacraments, it was the liturgies that became really important. Once you hand somebody a Bible and say, read it, and especially Martin Luther says, read it, and the way you interpret it will be right, all of a sudden people are saying, hot dog, I'm going to read this thing, and whatever I think it says,
It's right.
it says it is right. So we right now we're setting ourselves up for a lot of different ideas, right? And it happens relatively early because we talked about Luther. If we look about Lutheran theology and worship, a lot of similarities with Roman Catholicism, because Luther wasn't necessarily unhappy in Roman Catholic worship. He was unhappy in how the Roman Catholic, some of the Roman Catholic theology. But
He was
Calvin,
unhappy with himself.
yes, very unhappy with himself. Calvin, on the other hand, was unhappy with the whole shooting match, right? And so he's taking the Bible and looking at it and reading it, and comes to the conclusion that who is in charge? God is in charge, and we are not. And the Bible is central, and that becomes the focus of Calvinism and Calvinist worship. Arminianus reacts to that by saying, John Calvin, you are doing what?
You make it a
Just
little
too
too hard.
Making it too hard, putting too much emphasis in
Too strict.
God. You are taking away human
Human
free will.
Free will.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
smacking them over the head when they fall asleep during church.
all right, not good. So anyway, it's the same. Human beings have more choice than in Calvinism, and they kind of go back and forth. But we're still talking about the head. Now, understand, this is kind of going on during something else that's happening culturally in the world. What's happening culturally as both Arminianism and Calvinism are sort of taking root? What do we call that time period?
Reformation.
Well, Reformation. What else?
Renaissance.
Well, Renaissance we're kind of past. We're talking. It's called the Enlightenment.
Okay.
And what in culture is happening outside of religion? What's happening during the Enlightenment?
Well, the people are thinking different
Okay.
political ideas.
People are taking this thought business and running with it, right? And they're doing it with religion.
Economic, everything. The
Right.
whole schmear.
It's whole schmear. They're doing it with religion. They're doing it with science. They're doing it with philosophy. They're doing it with everything. Everything involves what?
Science.
Thought, right? Science, right? Technology. Everything involves thought. In fact, some are talking about God as being like this intellect. That a clockmaker that starts it all going and just stands back and watches it run, but it's all by design. Now, an assumption in the Enlightenment is that every problem can be solved, because it's all involving logic and intellect. Well, when you emphasize thought that much, what gets lost?
Spirit.
Spirit gets lost. What gets lost?
Emotion.
What's that?
Emotion, yeah.
Emotion, humanism,
Right.
all of that kind of gets lost because there's so much emphasis. And when you see that emphasis on thought translated into things like worship, what kind of worship do you end up with?
Cold.
Worship that is kind of cold. Worship that is
Structured.
emotionless. A worship that is formal. Very structured.
No feeling.
Not a lot of feeling, but a lot of thought.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A lot of thought.
I thought the deism started with the clock, with Franklin and all of our
Oh, sure.
American.
Yeah.
Did it start in Europe though?
Oh yeah, the Europeans were deists too.
Okay.
Will work with deists too. Because everything is mind oriented.
Right.
If there's a problem, we will solve it. Every problem is solvable because there's a logic to the universe. But when you say there's a logic to the universe, there's a lot that we go through that we don't necessarily understand or think about, right? Now, just as an aside, what kind of music are people listening to? Because this is a cultural thing. This isn't just a religious thing. This is all over culture. What kind of music are people listening to,
Down at the pub.
during the Enlightenment?
Down at the pub.
Well, during the Enlightenment.
Oh.
Bach,
Oh,
Beethoven.
Bach, okay, good. You're listening to Bach, right?
Classical, yeah.
Well, but only a particular kind of classical. You're listening to Bach. You're listening to Mozart. You're listening to Haydn. You're listening to Handel, and all of those. If you listen to it,
Stark and
well, it is does kind of get dark,
Bach is a lot of
but
church.
it's very, very precise.
Yeah.
It's incredibly structured, the music that they're listening to. They're forming patterns. Bach's writing prologues and fugues, and all of those are based on structure. Mozart, all of it very, very structured. Music that appeals. The music that's written and that's mediocre is appealing to your mind. They're following patterns, and that's society. You look at the art. The art that's being produced is, paintings in the 17th, 18th century. Very realistic. If you're painting a guy with a dog, it looks like a guy with a dog, right?
Yeah.
They're painting portraits that look like the people that's being painted. All of that's fine. It involves thought and intellect. But you're missing something. You look at that painting and you say, well, yeah, that looks like the
man,
person,
dog.
But it doesn't
Do anything.
do anything for me. It's a person, but it's not, doesn't show a lot of emotion. You listen to the music, and like for me, if you've ever listened to anything Haydn, okay, it's fine, but you don't feel a lot. It's okay. I can respect the skill in putting it together, but it's not. Doesn't move you. Doesn't make
You're
you
not going to
feel.
go humming it
He's
all
the
day.
Papa.
Yeah. He's a plotter.
The Papa.
Yeah, and that's where they wrote a million symphonies. But that's where people are. Well, the natural reaction to that is
Romanticism.
you gotta have feelings.
Yeah.
Feelings have been neglected. And if you look at the rest of culture, you look at music and art, and literature, all of a sudden you've got this big movement called Romanticism. And Romanticism doesn't mean feeling romantic about somebody. It's just emotional. Now we get, we start feeling emotion. And like a Beethoven is sort of a transitional figure between that very rigid classical and that romantic stuff. And romantic music just kind of soars. It's Tchaikovsky, it just moves. It's sweeping, and when you look at paintings, then how do the paintings change? What do you start seeing in the paintings?
some kind of action.
Well, you start seeing, yeah,
story like
some sort of like a little story, and you start seeing action, and you start looking at a landscape, and you don't say, "Oh, yeah, that's the way it looks," and you start saying, "Whoa, wow, that's
the
really
flowers
something."
are moving.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to look exactly like it's supposed to look. There's an emotion involved in it, and that's what happens in religion when we're looking at the late 18th century. That religion has been so intellectualized, just like the rest of society. All of a sudden, we start feeling things, and that's translated in religion by two brothers, at least in Christianity, becomes translated by the two brothers, the two Wesley brothers, that say all this stuff is fine, but where's the spirit? Where's the feeling? Where's the emotion, the excitement?
Cheerleaders.
Yeah, and so that's when the Wesley brothers start saying worship should be
fun too.
Fun. It should be. You should have emotions. You should feel
You should
things.
feel it. You should get in the
Yeah, so that he starts writing hymns too.
spirit. Pop music.
Now he's writing hymns to tavern music because they have nice melodies. They're fun to sing. He's just tacking different words to it, but the melodies are the same. And he starts emphasizing what sort of things to sort of spur this emotion. What parts of the Christian life does he start focusing on to get people to feel?
Free will.
Okay, he does start talking more about free will, sort of like the Arminianists, because he feels the Calvinists are so. If God's in charge of everything, you just do what you're told. There's not a lot of feeling there, but if you got free will, you make mistakes and you do good, and you feel bad when you make mistakes. You feel good when you do good things, right? What other things? So that's good, free will. What other things are the Wesley brothers going to emphasize to make them so that people can feel
Evangelicism, making the services alive.
Yeah, you're going to have a preacher that's going to really lay it out. Get the crowd fired up. While the Calvinist minister is preaching this lecture on Romans chapter 1. And it's a very good lecture that people grow as a result of hearing. The Wesleyan preachers are doing what?
Screaming.
Yes, you need to believe. Your life needs to change because you were trapped by sin. And so conversion becomes a big deal for the Wesleyans. And some Wesleyans, the conversion after conversion, they be involved in social work. Some do other things, but it's what you feel. And that's happening at the same time. This romantic movement is sweeping. The art is sweeping music, is sweeping literature. Governments, this is the time of revolutions where they're overturning monarchies and setting up republics. All of this is happening at the same time. So I guess I didn't really emphasize it before, but what I want to emphasize now is none of this stuff is happening in isolation. As religion changes, it's changing as society is changing. Society is now emphasizing emotion more than it did. Well, that ends up seeping into religion. Doesn't mean what they did before was wrong and this is right. Just means it's different, but everybody is part of it. Everything is moving in the same direction. Okay, and if you take the Wesleyan ideas further than the Wesley brothers, you end up with a very interesting branch of Christianity that really emphasizes the spirit and really emphasizes emotion called Pentecostalism, where it's people are really feeling. That's right.
I knew that.
Really feeling it.
But I keep thinking of him hollering, "Where's the Holy Rollers come in?"
Yeah, that's
Every time
it.
you say that, I think.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so we've talked about that. Now, last week we talked about the need that some American Christians have for their own religion. I mean, at best, Christianity is from someplace else, right? I mean, it's from Palestine, it's from Rome, right? It's from Europe.
Yeah.
If you want to see holy sites,
You got to go.
you got to go over there.
Yeah.
What we need is we need an American religion.
Yeah, we need Jesus to come here.
We need Jesus to come here. We don't need to go there. Yeah. And by gum, that's what we get.
Yeah.
The whole Mormon movement is putting Jesus here. Jesus is speaking to Americans and speaking to them now. And in fact, what Jesus did here was the pinnacle of his work. So all of a sudden we've got an all-American religion that also has different theology, slightly different theology. Because
Slightly?
What's that?
Slightly?
Yeah, well, they use a lot of the same names and words, so those are the same. But you're not talking about Trinity, and this is where where do you draw the line between what's in and what's not? They are not Trinitarians because they believe that the Father was one God, the Son was one God, the Spirit was another God. So that's different. If we say you've got to be Trinitarian to be a Christian, then they're not Christians. You know, so that their church emphasis on things like marriage and lineage, really important. If you want to find family background, you go to the Mormon Church because you're looking to trace yourself back to, you know. So all of that becomes part of the Mormon movement. But even if you think of it culturally, you know, the idea that Jesus is here, that's kind of exciting, right? That Jesus came and visited Fulton, Missouri. Whoa, that's pretty good. You know.
He flew over on a 7.
Well, he came, he showed up, but ancient Jews were on boats sailing across the Atlantic, landing here. That's a really kind of a romanticized story. Okay, all in keeping with this culture that we're in. Now, in the United States, and even it's going to happen, the same thing's going to happen in Europe. It's easy in the United States to sort of put your finger on it because something really traumatic occurs that changes a whole bunch of stuff. So we've got these Calvinists running around. They're still very intellectual. They're arguing with the Arminians and the Baptists. You got Wesleyans that are having a good time. You got Proto-Pentecostals that are having a better time. You got the Mormons that are going off to Utah, you know, and they're having a good time. And then all of a sudden in the United States something happens and nobody has a good time. And what happens in the middle of the 19th century that takes the fun out of everything? You got the Civil War, the American Civil War.
Oh, yeah,
and what happens in the American Civil War?
What do you mean what happened? Brother killed brother.
Okay, you got brother killing brother.
Father killing son.
Father killing son.
Family against family.
Okay.
It was terrible.
You've got horrible deaths. Now, in Europe, you know, you went through this period in like 1848. We had all these very romantic revolutions. We're taking charge of our fate. You know, we're going to be a national people. Italians, Germans, all of them. Oh, we're going to come together and we're going to do. And what happens is almost all of them fail or degenerate into something that is not quite so exciting. You also have over there the Crimean War, which is kind of a mess. You know, so all of a sudden,
France and England
walking
around each other too.
Yes, that's right. And so all of a sudden, bang, 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 the world changes. And can you be really, really romantic after the American Civil War? It becomes harder to be. Now, you know, you're still going to have some wonderful romantic writers that are doing their thing afterwards, but it changes, right? Yeah. Because, and not only is it a horrible war, but you remember Vietnam, y'all were watching it on TV?
No, we refused to watch it.
And that was really true. You refused to watch it, why?
Why? Because it was disgusting.
It was disgusting.
It was disgusting. These are our people getting slaughtered. And
you were seeing it all the time.
You were seeing it.
During World War II, you read about, but here you were seeing it. Yeah. What happens in the Civil War is something not unlike what occurs during the Vietnam War. Brady. Because it introduces something. Brady. You know, and he's just photographing battlefields.
The real deal.
Yeah, so he isn't. You don't have painters painting Napoleon on a horse, leading really clean men, you know, in starched uniform into battle. You don't have that anymore. You know, you've got it, but you also have these photographs that are showing what?
Arms cut off,
dead bodies.
He did. The Met had a whole fabulous, all of his hospital, cutting off the leg. You see the guy with no leg. Everything. He went into the hospital. He did everything in his assistance. He showed the worst of everything going on.
Now, after you see that,
You think twice about a war, don't you?
You really do, and something else you think twice about.
Not
Something
really.
something maybe more
Not
important.
for 4 years.
Maybe something more important that you think about. Well, you should. That's,
You should.
But you might
Mortality.
start
Yeah.
thinking about mortality.
Yeah.
You also stop thinking about this romantic idea that if we work, or even the enlightened idea, all problems can be solved. You know, the romantic idea, if we all get together and love one another, you know, everything's going to work out. Well, you know what? When you look at the pictures, it's like looking at pictures from a concentration camp. You just don't feel optimistic anymore.
No.
You know, it takes the optimism away.
Yeah. During the Second World War, there was a lot of
Sure.
photography. I saw a lot of it, but it was a lot different than in the Vietnam War and the Korean Wars and that. They were showing body counts. That was the object. It wasn't to show the battles or what was
Right.
going on. It was the body counts
Right.
and how awful it was.
But I think World War II, they didn't show any bodies until one of the battles in the Pacific was the first time they showed
Well,
that
you'd see the-
in the movie theaters.
No, you'd see where the cameramen are walking
Right.
by a body and that, but I mean, they didn't
Yeah, but I don't
say
think
Take
what-
pictures, yeah,
picture
yeah.
of the-
Well, what we end up with, my point is, after the Civil War, after the middle of the 19th century, culturally we go through a change, and that change we're going to see in religion too. When I start looking at the world and I can't be innocent anymore, the Civil War takes away my innocence. The Brady pictures take away my innocence. I'm not innocent anymore. This is a hard place, and just all we need is love is not good enough anymore. You know, it's not going to work anymore. You get this, and this is a movement in both art and a movement in literature called realism. You get this realism, you know, the red badge of courage, you know, where...
Whitman.
Yes,
Whitman was the best
absolutely.
nurse. He
You
was
know,
a male nurse.
it was. This is what it really is. We're not romanticizing it at all. This is reality. I'm going to present to you reality, and you start seeing it in paintings, either that or more abstraction, because I don't want to deal with. You know, it's not this romantic surge anymore. I don't want to deal with this anymore. And you see the same thing in religion. Now, I want you to think about this. When folks are confronted with this kind of realism, this is what the world is. It's Brady pictures. How might that shape religion? In other words, what might people look for in going into religion?
Imagine.
What's that?
Nothing.
Well, they have sort of lost their faith in
Yeah, I
the
was
world. A
gonna
lot
say
of them
they
will leave religion
lost their-
totally.
oh,
But
yeah.
if I go to religion, what is going to be really, really important to me?
answers and
Why?
and why. And
Okay,
What is the meaning of why I'm here?
Okay, maybe I'm struggling with the whys.
Yeah.
What else? Because we're going to see this movement in America after the Civil War. We're going to see it in Europe in about the same time.
Well, I'd be questioning life after, too.
Okay, good.
Hope for the future.
Yes, that's it, Joy. What we're going to see is people are going to start, groups are going to start looking towards the ultimate future. In other words, you look at the world as it is, and you say, man, no matter how hard we work, no matter what ideas we promote, no matter how close we get together, you know what?
Ain't going to get any better.
People kill one another. And this is a harsh and a terrible world we live in. This is really rough. You know, understand, Darwinism, you know, is becoming more popular now. And that's survival of the fittest. My gosh. This is not, you know, you got the muckrakers writing about slaughterhouses. You know, so this is not a good world. This is rough. And if this is a rough world, what do we need? We need hope for the future.
For the future.
Am I going to have any hope as I look at this world for the future? Heck no. Therefore, where can I put my hope? If the reality around me is so bad, where can I put my hope?
In God.
I got to put it in God. And what we're going to see is we're going to see a movement kind of across the board, but having specific groups, called an Adventist movement. And what the focus of the Adventist groups are going to be is, Advent, we remember the coming of Jesus, is going to be looking towards his return. The Adventist movement is going to be looking towards his return. When we read, and what book in the Bible are they going to draw a lot of their imagery from? Revelation. In fact, when you look at Revelation, if you just look at Revelation, Revelation is written to a people who are enduring intense persecution. Unlike what we see in Paul and even in the Gospels, where Paul says, well, you should pay your taxes. Well, you should obey the government because they're, instituted by God and that stuff. We see that in Paul, which sort of suggests that things aren't horrible. You could still live within this system. In fact, you don't want to tick it off. You can survive, do your work here. That's not the message of Revelation. The message of Revelation is the world is so bad. The only hope is what?
Change.
Who?
The second coming.
Jesus coming back, wiping the slate clean. What Paul is going to say is change. He's going to say, James is going to say the same. Yeah, you can change, morally change. You could change the people around you because the world isn't that bad. But for some of these folks after the Civil War, after the Korean War, industrialization, think about it. Moving from farms, which are, kind of a this romantic, Jeffersonian romantic idea. Being on the farm, working with your hands. It wasn't that great. But I mean, you were working, Now where are you working?
Some smelly
In a factory.
that's disgusting.
That's
Look to
disgusting. What's that? Yeah, Dickens. And you're where they're dumping sewage out in the overpopulation without facilities to handle it. This is a rough world. And so what people started thinking is not we're going to improve this world. Religious people is we need not to escape it either. We need to look to the time when
It happens.
Jesus is going to come back, and when Jesus comes back,
We're all going to go to heaven.
we're all going to, and he is going to knock a few heads together. He is going to clean up this mess that we may have made, but he's going to clean it up, and he's going to take us to heaven to a better life.
Only 111,000.
Yes. One of those Adventist movements are Jehovah's Witnesses. Yeah. We're going to talk about another one called Seventh-day Adventists,
Oh, we don't know them.
which is another Adventist group. But understand this idea of Jesus returning. This is going to cut across the board. It's going to influence all Christian groups because everybody is looking for, the intellect of the Calvinists didn't really work. The emotions of the Wesleyans didn't really work. Maybe only God can cause it to work. And so that's what we end up with. One of the groups is going to be Jehovah's Witnesses. And Jehovah's Witnesses was started by a guy named Charles Taz Russell.
Russell?
Russell. Okay. There's going to be another one named Rutherford later, but Russell is the first one. Where do you think Russell gets his ideas? As he's a guy, American, 1870, sort of hanging around. Gosh, what city is he hanging around? Pittsburgh. He's hanging around Pittsburgh. What do you think he goes to? Religious person. Where will he go to get guidance and direction?
Carnegie.
Doesn't go to Carnegie.
Kid.
Although he did look in the gate. Where do you think he goes? Yeah. Where do you think he goes? He's a Christian. Where do you think he goes to guide?
He goes to a close
Yeah, goes to a church, but I'm going to a church and what they're saying.
So he goes to the Bible?
He goes to the Bible.
Yeah.
He goes to the Bible. And remember, this is one of the things Luther said. You give anybody a Bible and tell them to read it, they're going to start interpreting it. And he starts reading his Bible, and all of a sudden he starts checking things off. You know, I've been taught this, but I don't see it in here. I've been taught this, but I don't see it in here. As he does that, like he'll take, he doesn't believe in the immortality of the soul because he says it's not in the Bible. Show me in the Bible. He says he doesn't find it. He doesn't see. He says there's nothing about permanent punishment, eternal punishment. That's not in the Bible. And so what he does is he still goes to the Bible and starts interpreting it for himself. Now, he's also a writer, so he does what? Something Joseph Smith didn't do. Well, he did do it, but you know, he was gonna. But he starts writing his observations down, and the observations he makes are going to be the foundation of the Jehovah's Witnesses, because he's going to come to the conclusion that certain things that the Christian church has taught for a long time are
not true.
First, we are not calling God by the appropriate name. We should be calling God Jehovah. We should be calling God Jehovah. And when I'm saying God, when he says you call God Jehovah, he's not talking about God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. He's talking about Jehovah. He's talking about Jehovah. You know, there is no, unlike Joseph Smith, there aren't three gods sitting around a table, nor is there a Trinity, all in one. There is one God, Jehovah. Now, I told you once about how how that word developed, which was a weird kind of way. It's a non-word. It doesn't exist. You know, it's using it's using consonants from one word and mixing it with vowels from another word, and you get Jehovah, which is a non. So it's really not a word at all. Now he does this. He's interpreting this, and the other thing he says is that Jesus, even though with the focus is on Jehovah, one God, Jesus is involved. But what is Jesus? What is Son? What is the Son? Because Jesus is the Son. Jesus is the Son of God. Right. But what is the Son of God? What is the Son?
Prophet.
I didn't get that far.
Jesus, what he'll say is that there's one God, right? Jehovah, one God. All powerful, almighty, all that stuff. He'll say that God only created one thing. This Jehovah God created one thing. That's it. Just one thing. And that one thing was
Jesus?
The Son.
Really?
Created the Son. And what did the Son do? S-O-N, not S-U-N. What did the Son do? Created everything else. The Son, so he says, there it is in the Bible. You know, it's like in first chapter of John, you know, that the Son, you know, the Word was the Creator. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. Only as he translates it, it says he who translated the Word was a God. So it wasn't that there was a separation between Jehovah and the Son. And all things came to being through the Word, and not anything that came into being came to being apart from the Word. So the Word, the Son, becomes a creative agent.
In Hebrew,
yes,
you said the word was a God. Yeah, I've always been taught it was God.
Yes.
No article in front of it.
That's exactly right. There's no article in front of it.
Okay.
But for him to have that separation, you know, he needs to... as he translates, he's got to translate in a way that reinforces his ideas. All right,
So he's
it's kind
fudging
of,
it.
he's fudging a little bit.
Exactly.
But you're using ancient languages, so you can fudge it with
fudging
ancient
in the
language.
modern.
A little bit. So anyway, so we've got Russell saying that God is there, and Jesus was the first creation, or the Son was the first creation of God, and the Son created everything that
The
is.
Old Testament, he just didn't do anything with the Old Testament?
Well, he did.
With Genesis?
And he will say that, the Son was that created. In fact, he'll go so far as to say there are certain images, like angels in the Old Testament, that refer to Jesus, which I've heard some Protestants talk about. When somebody appears here, that's really Jesus appearing, or the Son appearing. It won't be Jesus, because Jesus is going to be a person. But it's the Son appearing. Well, he said that's proof that the Son isn't Jehovah, because Jehovah can't just appear here. If Jehovah's here, then who's here? If Jehovah is everywhere, how can he appear in one place? That doesn't make any sense.
String theory.
Yeah, it kind of becomes kind of odd. So
kinda
becomes
Well, no, wait a minute.
yeah. Now I'm talking about what Russell is teaching.
Yeah, I know, but I'm
Yeah.
saying his thing, if Jehovah is everywhere, how can he be in one place? Because he's everywhere.
Well, I guess, how can he be standing there talking to Abraham? How can he be standing there talking to Abraham? How can he be in a bush, burning bush? How can he be making revelation to folks? He, in a particular way. How can he walk past, Elijah? He can't be. That must be the Son doing it, right? Who is the first creation of Jehovah. Okay, but this part of the theology he's getting, but what's really important for him is, again, he's an Adventist, right? Which means he believes what?
The second coming.
That Son is going to come. Now, he'll say the Son did everything Jesus did. Everything. And is the Redeemer, and died for our sins, and through the Son, sins are forgiven, and all that kind of jazz. Has no trouble with resurrection. He's just saying that the Son is not God. The Son is not God. Everything else about it is true. He just isn't God. First creation of God. In the ancient world, there was a guy named Arius that taught this. They were called Arians, that believed that you had God and Jesus here was a creation of God. So this goes back way back to 2nd, 3rd century. Okay, so this is an old idea. But what's really that's not that exciting. That kind of goes back a long ways. Russell believed, if he's an Adventist, he believes what? He believes
life ever after. And there is some
Jesus is going to come back soon. He is going to come back soon. And when he takes Revelation, because he's a good realist, he's going to interpret Revelation realistically. This is the pattern that you use. And he starts identifying things. This is the dragon, this is here. So he starts doing it, and he calculates a time when
it's going to happen.
When it's going to happen. He says, this is when it's going to happen.
So when did he say?
We're in the time now.
Well, he's going to say it's really interesting. He's going to say, I'm thinking 1890 was his first, but he says that was wrong, and he knew he was wrong. Jesus didn't come back. Yeah, Jesus didn't come back. So, and then he will say that it's 1914, and he'll say in 1914, and he's going to be followed by, because he's going to die, be followed by a guy named Rutherford, who's going to take charge. Now, if you want to make sure people stay focused on this teaching, what are some of the things you better do?
You better come up with some true things. Something that's...
Well, like I was just told the other day, the time is now.
Well,
it is happening now.
This is what Rutherford will say. Jesus is supposed to come back 1890, I think. Didn't do it. That was miscalculation. Going to come back in 1914. Now, if he didn't come back in 1914, then that looks really stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, you're wrong twice.
Only
Hal Lindsey can be wrong more than once and still sell books. So you can't keep on being wrong, right? And so what Rutherford would say is Jesus did come back. And that's why the person will say to you, oh, we're in it now. Will say, Jesus did come back in 1914. Jesus did return in 1914. Hot dog, Jesus is here now.
You just don't know where he's
Well, we have now entered that 1,000 years. That Jesus will work things out, the millennia.
Oh, okay.
Now he's
So-
got them all covered.
Yes, now he's got it all covered, right? But he wasn't wrong. Now he was expecting Jesus to come and knock some heads together. And Jesus didn't do it, but spiritually, he entered the house. He entered the heavenly temple. He returned as Savior.
Maybe he did.
And now, what's that?
Maybe he did knock some heads together. He had World
Maybe he
War
did.
I,
We had World War One. Yeah.
World War II.
Talk about
Sure, he
that.
did talk about knocking some heads
If
together.
Romanticism was staggering before, it is going to be devastated after. But that's what Rutherford's going to say. So that's why they can say
That it is happening now. Okay.
it is happening now.
Okay.
That it is happening now. We are part of. Jesus is in the house.
In the house.
Yes, he's in the house. He's in the temple.
Elvis is
So
back.
Yeah.
So now he is here, but we still need to be focused on then
Living a good life.
living a good life.
And
Now,
doing right things.
Russell will also say some very interesting things about afterlife, about the afterlife. Now, how might one? What happens at what would most Christians say happens at death?
Your body starts to decay.
Okay, your body decays,
Your
but
spirit leaves your
spirit leaves our soul. Rutherford will say, and Russell will say, that's false.
Go to sleep.
Yeah, there's no soul. There's no sort of not unlike what I've kind of taught a little bit, that there's not, the soul doesn't become disembodied. The soul doesn't go up to heaven and the body stay on there. Instead, the body
Goes to sleep.
goes to sleep and is awaiting
Waiting for it to come in.
Jesus to come
down.
back in a physical way, not the spiritual way he's already come, but in a physical way, and that's when all the bodies are going to
Wake up.
be raised.
Yeah.
What about cremation? What about modern, like, you blow yourself up in a plane or something, all of this? All the people without bodies. How
New
do they
body.
explain that?
New body.
New body.
You're not coming back in your old body anyway. Even if you're buried in a hole with your old body, it's not the old body that comes back. It is a new, recreated body. And that Paul says that in 15th chapter, 1 Corinthians.
So what's the sense of burials? Because I know a lot of the religions do
Right.
say,
Right.
cremation is
Right.
like a no-no
Right.
because you have to have that old
Yeah.
rotting body.
I'm not sure I don't think this is doctrine in Jehovah's Witness. And most, that's, again, that a lot of that gets sort of Roman Catholic because of the idea that you've got to have physical, the physical images.
I was told that you will know everyone. You might not recognize them because you might have to have been given a new body.
Yeah.
But you will know them the minute you see them.
When you see me in the future, if I were Jehovah, see me, I'll have more hair.
Yep. And you might be 6'4".
I might be 6'4".
Like
That'd
You
be a
know,
good basketball
I'd be much better at basketball than I am now.
Or you might be wearing a skirt, pearls, and a little heels.
No,
You
know,
might.
she said it would be a change.
It would be a change.
We don't want to go there. We don't want to go there. We don't want to do that. Okay.
Rose-colored
Yeah.
shoes.
Well, yeah. I was only talking about Fridays anyway, so it's it's all right.
It's like buying a battery. You got to have the old body to give them back.
Yeah, that's right. Now,
What's your trade-in?
Yep.
but that's what they believe. And when judgment comes, then you're looking not at Jehovah's Witnesses don't have hell. Jehovah's Witnesses have, not everyone is redeemed, though. Jehovah's Witnesses, you have what they call annihilation. And you just simply cease to be. There is no eternal punishment into Jehovah's Witnesses. So no one is punished for anything they've done. You just cease to be.
So Hitler just dissolves.
Just will dissolve. Will just dissolve.
And you go to a giant pasture, and you can be what you want to be. I'm going to be a caregiver.
Now, if you're lucky, if you've lived a good life,
I wasn't. Yeah.
that's right. You got to live a good life.
Yeah.
If you live a good life, then you get to.
Yeah. You might
Yeah.
get to go to the second place.
Yes, you get to you get to go to another place. But
Who's the 100 and something?
well,
thousand? I never did
initially,
figure that out.
initially, because again, he's taking Revelation in a
pointed
very
at the
literal
Bible.
way.
Yeah, he pointed at
because that's what it says in Revelation.
Okay.
And so early on, the Jehovah's Witnesses believed that only 144,000 people are redeemed.
Yeah.
That's it. We'll go to heaven.
And where did they get that figure?
From Revelation. From Revelation. So that's the figure they say, that's the number. And that was a good number until,
144,001 person was born.
well, no, not just person, but Jehovah's Witness.
No.
When you have more than 144,000 Jehovah's Witnesses,
Now you get a problem.
now you got a problem.
Yeah.
Because that means some good, solid Jehovah's Witnesses
Gonna be left
are
on-
going to be toast. Well, not toast, they're going to be annihilated.
They're gonna-
They're going to disappear.
Yeah.
Be
Uh,
left on the
or-
platform.
or get
So when
to
they
be-
have 111,000 members of Jehovah's Witness and you want to go join them, they put you on a waiting list. Huh?
Yeah, so not unlike Steeler tickets.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they can't make it 112.
Yeah, no.
So why do they come around trying to recruit everybody if they're filled up?
Well,
They really believe it.
now, see, this filling up causes a lot of problems.
Yeah, it
You're
does.
filled up. So why
Yeah.
are you going to come to my
Well-
with that
Well,
one card?
because there's a place for you other than in.
Well, what they will end up, what they will say is that number was never, she was listening,
Never
was never
considered.
intended to be taken literally.
Then why give it?
Well, that was kind of an error in interpretation. Not unlike the error when they got the date of Jesus' coming wrong. This was an
They're not very good
interpret.
at math.
So they're not good at math. But you don't have to be a good Jehovah's Witness. And so in this paradise that's coming, there will be more than 144.
Yes.
One of the problems is not only 144,000 Jehovah's Witnesses now, but that would mean, okay, we got to 144, and then we got a new generation. So some of the ones who are in start slipping out. We're having to bump, the bottom tier to include others.
Yeah.
And, that it gets competition, people are cheating, edging their way in line. It's an unpleasant picture.
They
So-
have those like big convention things. I can
Yes.
remember, and there's
Yeah.
got to be how many people go to those?
A lot
You
of
know
them.
what I mean?
Yeah. Well, only a few. No, but that's why they changed it. Because you're right. Gene, what you said is exactly right. If you're going out and saying, this is the truth, this is the way to live, but you're not going to make it because we already got it.
Why-
Huge waiting list.
why do
What are you
you-
waiting for? The people are already going.
Why are there two people? Are they afraid of getting robbed? They can't go out singly? There's always two people with those books.
Why do you think it's only two? Why do you think it's two people?
Double team you.
Oh, that's not going to work.
Well,
Casey.
one-
Makes a
one-
mistake.
And the sun.
Well, yes, but even more specific than that, when Jesus sent out his disciples,
Two.
he sent them out two by two. And they are going to take the Bible extremely literally.
Or they're afraid of being beaten up.
Well, that may be, but one of the things that you got to be,
People and somebody may just whack you.
well, you always got to be careful with some of the groups, even within Christianity, Orthodox Christianity. It's really easy for people to develop a martyr mentality, and you know what a martyr is. What's a martyr?
Somebody's sacrifice for
Okay,
a cause.
sacrifice for a cause, and if it's Christian, you sacrifice for Christ. In fact, I've told you the name in Greek, the word disciple is martyrios. Martyrios. That's where we get the word martyr. So a disciple is a martyr, is sacrificing for. Okay. it's really easy to kind of get, for some folks, to get a martyr's mentality. In other words, seek out opportunities to be a martyr. Now, most of them don't want to be killed, but to be rejected, I'm rejected. You rejected me, and I was preaching to you the word, and you rejected me.
Shut the door right in your
Yeah, shut the door right in my face. And but how do I feel? Having the door shut in my face.
Feel good.
I might feel good because I have done this for God, right? And that's something that we got to be really careful of. One of the things in the early church, in fact, it was a problem in the early church, and it sounds really weird, but it was. The church believed, and this is before 300, Constantine's conversion. In the 3rd century, the church was facing a lot of persecution, and it was systematic persecution. And because you had some emperors that didn't like Christians were getting too big. They were becoming a political threat. And people don't like that. And since Christians didn't engage in emperor worship and didn't participate in community rights, they were considered dangerous. And so there was a lot of persecution. And one of the things the church, to encourage people to stand up to persecution, is the church taught that if you died in a situation, if you died standing up for the faith, then you didn't become a saint, but you reached a higher level. You'll reach a higher level. It's not sainthood, but because they didn't have a formal system of sainthood anyway. But you would be special. God would view
just like
sort of like Joan of Arc, only much earlier. That you would be held up. High. God would reward that sacrifice you made.
Yeah, just
Or
like
getting
just
your
like
virgins.
And one of the issues the early church had.
Get 150
Well,
virgins.
one of the problems the church had was some folks that maybe weren't either the sharpest knives in the drawer or for whatever reason, they were seeking out martyrdom. So they would tick off a Roman soldier so that he would take action.
So he killed him.
Exactly, because if your life is so horrible as it is now, man, it's got to be better. And this became a real problem that people were seeking out martyrdom. And the church had to come back and say, now understand, you become a martyr when you die for the faith, but you don't become a martyr when you step out in front of a chariot. You don't become a martyr when you call a Roman soldier a name and he kills you. And then you say at the end, well, I'm a Christian. That's not martyrdom. You always have to be careful. There are a lot of modern folks that have this martyr mentality. And I know because I did. Evangelical Christianity. That's easy to get this martyr thing.
The one girl that came to the house, yes, I can definitely associate her with that. And the other one, it was just a good old girl.
Yeah.
What, and you let him into your house?
Oh,
and they were talking to you?
I've been talking to him for a year.
Yeah, it's been
almost
a while.
2 years. Yeah, I even went and studied the Bible with them sometime. Yeah, and as I got into it, I realized this was not for me, and that's when I seeked him.
Well, and
to be honest, that's when I started.
Even when we talk about Mormons and we're talking about Jehovah's Witnesses tonight, and next week we're going to look at Christian Science, which is I find really interesting. It's still 90% is the same. If you go to a Mormon church and you participate in the service, they're going to sing and they're going to preach and they're going to pray, and you're going to see all these young families, and they're going to be happy and they're going to be smiling and they're going to do good things.
And
they're going to do
good Christmas.
Well, they're going to do good things in the community. Really good things in their community. They're going to take care of one another, I'll tell you that. If somebody has a problem in that group, they're going to take care of them. And you say, whoa, I'd like to be a part of a group that's like that. And that's natural. Well, but even a woman, but you're talking about once you, though, learn more, you start saying, this,
wait a
wait a minute, this doesn't sound quite right.
Yeah, this
and
is,
and that's
and
what
you don't feel
yeah,
it.
you start saying, well, gee, that's kind of odd. Mormon theology, one of the things is it is really out there when you get deep about people inheriting planets, and you will rule your own planet because Jesus rules his planet, and God has a planet, and it's really out there. Jehovah's Witness isn't quite as out there, but there are things in it you say, that's one of the things Russell will teach and Rutherford will reinforce, is that since it's Jehovah, you are a witness to Jehovah, right? Mm-hmm. And Jehovah is God. Your loyalty should be where?
To Jehovah.
Your loyalty is to Jehovah, right? Which means your loyalty is not to other places, in other places, such as to the state. You don't have any loyalty at all to your country. None. Zippo. Because if you were loyal to your country,
then you can't be loyal.
You cannot be loyal to the Jehovah God. And that's going to be a what?
What if they were drafted?
They are conscientious objectors, and will go to jail.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that.
Yep.
That happened, didn't it?
Yes, sir. And one of the now, when would this become a big issue? When would it be a big issue? This I cannot be. Now, you're not loyal to any. Jehovah's Witnesses will not celebrate
Christmas. They have a program at Easter. And I've been invited to it, but I'm not going.
Yeah, they just, because this is a loyalty, this is a distraction from your focus on God.
Some of them, but birthdays though, they're not supposed to. But some
of
them do.
Right, they're not supposed to.
Yeah,
because you're honoring the person and not God. When with this nation thing, when would that become huge? During wars. During wars would be a huge, because the last thing you want, everybody's supposed to be united.
Yeah.
And in World War II, it's so bizarre. It's got to be true. We need to be united as a nation. Right?
Yeah.
And you can find pictures. Google this. You can find pictures of it. And so school children are supposed to recite the Pledge of Allegiance every day. Now, understand, before that, they really didn't much. But they did afterwards, because we're patriotic now.
Did what?
They did. This wasn't part of typical school curriculum until the war.
Until the war.
The war.
No, when I was in school, you cited the Pledge of Allegiance every day.
Well, I'm just saying, it wasn't universal.
You also had Bible readings.
Right. Well, we had Lord's Prayer.
Yeah, we did that too.
But it wasn't universal until the war. I mean, it wasn't imposed universal across the country until the war. And when you said the pledge, to show you honored, what do you think you did? Were you supposed to do when you put your hand on your heart? No.
Salute.
That's not what you did. Salute? No, that's not what you did.
Stand up.
You stood up, and you extended your arm like this.
Oh, yes. Yes, I've seen pictures. Yes, you're right.
You extended your arm like this when you said it. Now, this created a problem. Even the pledge created a problem, because Jehovah's Witnesses can't say the pledge. They can't pledge allegiance to anything other than God. And during a war, that's not well received. And so Jehovah's Witnesses were arrested during the war for not pledging allegiance. And in fact, the trial, and I can't think of the name, it was a big court, a big trial. The Supreme Court ruled in their favor, but it was something that made it all the way to the Supreme Court, that the government could not, force people to make the pledge.
But under God in the pledge, didn't that come in with Eisenhower in the 50s?
That was later. Yes, this wasn't.
So it wasn't with under God.
It wasn't.
They didn't have to say that. They just.
They can't pledge. They cannot pledge allegiance to the nation. The problem was, if they had added God, it might have made it even a tiny bit more palatable, but they can't say, I pledge allegiance to the flag. Lord have mercy. That's saying I'm
How
not.
about I affirm? Could they say that?
I don't know. I don't know.
Because that holds up in court.
Yeah, I don't know if they if I don't know, but it's for theological reasons they can't do it.
Yeah.
They also have a economically they have very strong economic ideas. They judge harshly those who acquire a lot of wealth, which kind of makes sense because those who have acquired wealth must be dedicated to money. You know, they pledge their allegiance to money. So they, you know, their view of wealth is really off.
Now, if those guys with the wealth spread around with the others, how do you think they'd feel?
If the guy with the wealth bought a kingdom, built a kingdom hall,
Oh, they'd love it.
I think they probably would.
Well, when I bought the Christmas presents, and I found out, oops, you know, so I gave them to the girls at the bowling alley. And later I told this one, she's a black lady, I like her really well. Her name is Gwen. I was telling her about it, and she said, what was it? I said, Gwen, it was a tote umbrella that fit in your purse. Oh, I could have used that. She said, I could have taken it, but I didn't have to say it was a Christmas present.
Yeah.
That's
Why aren't
That's
they
how they-
allowed Christmas presents?
Because again, this is a dedication to a holiday, and it distracts your attention from God.
So that was one of the first
So they
things.
can't have any presents?
Not
They don't
on
have
a
they don't have
birthday.
any holiday.
No birthdays.
No birthdays.
No birthdays.
No.
Some of them do, though. Some of them
Some of 'em do,
celebrate it.
but
I don't know.
most of 'em-
This is a funny story. There was a lady that worked with me that she was Jehovah's Witness. And loved her to death. And we never really talked religion, you know, much. We never say anything. But she did tell me a story one time of, because she would go door to door, and she said they went up to the door, and the big door was open, you know, so you could see inside, and they knocked. And she said, you can see the person crawling across the floor to try to pretend they weren't home. She thought it was funny, and I'll never forget it because she passed away now, but it was hilarious
Well, I
when
never
she told
invited
me
them in,
it.
but we stood outside. I didn't invite them in.
She goes, they thought we really couldn't see them. You know?
They
Explain,
hit the dirt. They were.
explain the cross. That blew my mind.
Demando.
They,
That Jesus didn't die on a cross.
right.
Yeah, Jesus did not die on a
On a
cross.
cross. And so if you wear a cross, a symbol of it, you are not a Christian.
Yeah. Yeah, he died on a pole.
Yeah. He was staked to a pole.
Yeah, he was staked to a pole. And that again, you know, one of the things you have to.
Pole at that, like a pole.
It was-
Krasinski,
It was
Borshowitz,
pole, and
some kind of
he
pole.
was staked like this with his feet down and his hands up here like this with nails. That's
Yeah.
how that's
Well,
what they said.
In some of it, they refer to a tree.
Yeah. So one of the things though that once you come up with these ideas, you know, and this becomes the basis of your group, you want to make sure other ideas don't come in or you don't have people questioning. So one of the things they do, the Watchtower Society, and if you get anything that is published and it says Watchtower, that's coming from Jehovah's Witnesses. Watchtower, you're watching, awaiting the end. That was that image in the Bible about looking forward, you know, to the coming of Christ. And so Watchtower, and so they kind of close interpretation. So the doctrine now is the doctrine forever. So once, you know,
Synopsis
Russell has
comes.
finished and once Rutherford's done, now they keep very tight control
So now
over
they-
the doctrine.
So now it's dogma.
Yeah, well now you couldn't have a Kingdom Hall that's kind of exploring different ideas or different possibilities. You know, they keep a very tight rein on the doctrine.
And it just was like, I really feel in my heart that I have a little bit left to give. And I don't want to worship someplace where it's so sad and so, I mean, you know, the whole idea is doomsday. You know,
it
it's
is.
just I don't like.
But remember, this is coming after the American Civil War. You know, he's writing in 1870.
Well, you can understand that.
Yeah, you can understand why he would be just really discouraged.
Well,
you know, about the world, and Jesus is going to come back, and so that's what we end up.
So
with.
Walt Whitman could have started his own religion.
Well,
with what he'd said.
Sure. Well,
and
other
instead
people.
of writing
Other
poetry.
people are going to react in different ways. Some people are going to leave it all. You know, some people are just going to say religion is nonsense. Clearly, a God couldn't allow this to happen. Others are going to say after the war, well, this destructiveness shows what man is capable of if we can turn it to a positive. This incredible energy and power, if we can turn that to a positive, we can do great things. And that's going to be the social gospel movement in the early 20th century, is going to take that approach. True, the world is bad, and these are the signs, but my gosh, if you take that energy and move it into helping people, you can change the world. And that's what they're going to preach, and of course that's going to come crashing down in the trenches. After World War I, that's a hard one to stick to. You know, we're just getting better. You know, we get, you know, there are stumbles that show, but we can do this. The World War I is going to eliminate that. Okay. Any other questions about Jehovah's Witnesses?
Well, when this lady that I worked with, when she passed away, she ended up with, we weren't working together at the time, she had quit, but when she passed away, like, I didn't, like, I don't know, like, they were having something at the Kingdom Hall, but, like, is that only for, I never went. I didn't know what to expect. Does anybody else know anything about funerals?
What, they don't have funerals?
I don't know, I mean, like, there was something at the Kingdom Hall, but I didn't know if that was just for Jehovah's Witness, or if, like, you know, I could have gone. I didn't go, and I always felt like that I wasn't paying my respect, but I didn't know. I felt uncomfortable. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah,
So
I don't know how the Jehovah's Witnesses view funerals.
Well, do they have like service? I mean, all I know is coming to the door with the
No, they have services. They have meetings.
Oh yeah, they have
Absolutely.
Prince did that.
Yeah.
Prince went around Minneapolis with his Jehovah's Witness watchtower,
Right.
which I found really bizarre. But do they have like a weekly service with a
Oh, yeah.
preacher and all this?
It's not one preacher. From
Right.
what I understand, they get up and talk.
Just anybody.
You don't have clergy.
You don't
You don't have Jehovah's Witness
No.
clergy.
No.
So
But-
anybody just gets up and talks.
I
if
don't-
they want to.
It has to be certain people.
Well,
Probably the wealthy guy with the suit.
yeah. Well, you know, if you say
be a chosen
you
one.
have no clergy with an asterisk. You know, Joe is going to speak every meeting. He's going to speak every meeting because he does it really well, and he's really smart, and he reads his Bible, and he knows
knows
it.
more
So
than we do.
yeah, that's what Joe does, and so does he have clergy? Do you have clergy? No, but you know,
Women speak.
you know, I don't.
I
I
would
think so.
say-
I think so. One of the things with
don't
Jehovah's
know.
Witnesses is they've tended to be, when they were in the late 19th, early 20th century, they were really the ones that were making people uncomfortable because it was so stupid progressive. I mean, they were the ones that were really adamant against the accumulation of wealth. You know, they were, involved in, economic socialism, not any political, but they were involved in a lot of that. They were viewed as,
Were they involved with the suffragettes?
they could have been. I don't know how Jehovah's Witnesses view women. I know women are often really attracted to Jehovah's Witness. There are a lot of women in the Jehovah's Witness movement, and they have allowed women to visit for as long as I know. Mormons don't. That's only recent that women are now allowed to do the what do they call it? The shoot. It's all. The time they do their. I'm not getting it. But when they go the 2 years, they go to witness
mission.
on the mission. That's what women weren't allowed on missions until recently.
Well, that's because there were 52 wives, and
Yeah.
one couldn't leave the other wife and all the kids and everything.
So,
Much to do.
but Jehovah Witnesses were not.
Do they?
See,
Do
like
they
that
sing?
idea.
Some things that,
I think so.
it's like
52
the
wives? I
NCAA,
don't need that
okay?
many.
Uh-huh.
Now, and I'm not complaining, I'm just saying how
Right.
it's a little bit funny that any of the kids or students that want to play sports,
Mhm.
they'll give them an extra year or two because
Right.
of their mission.
Because of their mission, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes that's where you look at Brigham Young, and they may have somebody 24 years old,
Yeah.
playing, which is kind of you say, whoa, that's kind
Well,
of
the one
amazing.
girl that come to the house was raised Roman Catholic, and she was a good Catholic, and she met her husband now, and she converted, and her family and her didn't speak for years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, her mother would call her, and she'd hang up on her mother. Her daddy died, and she didn't go to the funeral. I mean, it's pretty rough.
It is rough.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Well, what happens if one of them has a business and they become rich from their business? Do they throw them out of the religion?
Well, I think if they're retaining, yeah, I think they probably would.
You probably would.
I think they
Well, that's
probably would.
stupid.
That would be consistent with their theology. They would probably
Unless they needed a new car or something
Well,
to get around
you
for their
know,
mission, they might
but
not.
I think they probably
Gwen
would.
has a nice new car.
Yeah.
It's a pretty car.
Jehovah Witnesses.
Well, that don't mean she's rich.
No, it means she might have gotten it from the church.
She may be living in her car.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
So anyway, that's Jehovah Witness. One of the fastest groups growing in the world.
Is it really?
Jehovah Witness is growing very, very fast.
It's so secretive.
But think about the people who would be most drawn.
And that would be
It would be people who are really struggling with life, who have nothing, who are just scrambling to
Just down on
exist,
themselves.
and
Financially or-
financially, physically,
And emotionally.
emotionally.
That was a question I
Yeah.
was going to ask.
heroin or that.
Would they have any limits on, for example, how much of a home you could have? Because, if you, like saying,
Mhm.
you own a business and you're up here, you're out.
Yeah,
How about the houses and the accommodations and your clothing and all
Right.
that?
yeah. I don't know where they would draw lines. I know their appeal is, and the appeal they've grown very quickly in like Eastern Europe and in the old Soviet Union, because life is so incredibly hard that the only one that can solve this. Don't tell me it's up to me to better myself, because I can't. The only one that can solve it is God intervening. And all of a sudden, I now have, I believe God is going to come down. He's going to knock a few heads together. He's going to take me home. I've got this wonderful community of people who share that vision, who are economically, intellectually, emotionally just like me.
Just like you.
And now we have this community here that will help me face the future. So I can see the appeal and the theology. When you're talking about God and Jesus, this was a major issue in the early church. So the idea of God having a planet and Jesus having a planet is kind of out there, but the idea that there's one God and Jesus is the first creation of God, but there's one God, that has deep roots in the Christian church. That idea has deep roots. That's why the Council of Nicaea, the Nicene Creed, came to oppose Arius and Arianism. This idea that God is three, but one, because that was so influential. We had Byzantine Roman emperors that were Arians, and bishops that were Arians. So it goes back a long way.
Well, the lady that I knew, her and her husband, they didn't have much. They they never bought a home. Mm-hmm. They always rented. But here's something too. They had twin sons. One of them committed suicide. And her daughter tried to kill herself too. I hear a lot of that within the Jehovah's Witnesses, that a lot of suicide, like maybe because they're just such down,
It's not, you're not
like
happy with life now.
Well,
Yeah.
I can understand it. Maybe I'm goofy. If I feel so lousy that I can't do this or can't do that, and I'm going to go there to look for my help and salvation, and none of them are any better off than I am. Now I'm in a whole group of people that are
Right.
You're gonna
like
be
me,
worse
which is
than
going to
when
make
you went.
me feel worse,
That's
not better.
That's because you're normal. And that's why I'm out, because I was normal. And we're not that depressed. We don't
Yeah.
need
She
that.
was-
We've got
she
enough
was-
depression.
She was so, I mean, she was such an unhappy person.
Yeah.
I mean, she was just,
Did you ever see an Amish woman smile?
they're pretty, solemn too.
Are you saying Jehovah's one of the biggest growing religions in this country?
It is growing in this country, but worldwide. Like I said, it's growing very, very quickly in what Eastern Europe and what used to be the Soviet Union and Russia. And I think once you knock down the idea of a triune God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and they see the Spirit but as an energizing force, it's not God. If you're talking to somebody that doesn't have that background at all, and you are talking about God now, you're introducing God into a conversation, since they have nothing on which to judge, and that they're Jehovah's Witnesses will say they're Christian. They're not going to say we're a separate religion. They would say yes, we are. In fact, not only are we Christian, we are the way Christ intended His church to be. We are the way that the church functioned in Acts. We are the right ones. The Roman Catholics, the Baptists, the Presbyterians, the Eastern Orthodox, they're wrong. They got off the track. We brought it back to what it really is. This is the truth, and the Bible is the basis. And so you tell somebody that has no basis to evaluate it, and that God's going to take care of you, and you're going to have a home here. That becomes quite an appeal when you've had so little in your life and believed in nothing, had nothing to believe in. Or if you did believe in the state or the party, now that's gone. Yes. You have nothing to go to. And so it ends up having a real appeal. And it's not complicated. It's fairly simple. Unlike, some other religions. You can understand it. It's not quite as mystical as Eastern Orthodox. It's pretty concrete. So it has a big appeal in Eastern. Has had a big appeal in Eastern Europe. So
I don't understand how you can get a following like this guy is. We're talking less than or a century.
Uh-huh.
You just okay, here we go. The same thing with the Mormons.
Mm-hmm.
Logically. Everything else. I mean, so I could technically say, all right, well, I have to involve cats in religion, because if you go back and you
got one follower.
You've had that throughout history. You've had it 100
2
times.
followers. You're putting together a cult right here in this room. You got 2 people that are ready to follow
I
you.
have my mummified
You could
cats
be
I've
Elmer
seen in
Gantry.
Egypt.
That's right. That's right.
They followed back.
Shirley Jones.
But the point is,
Just saying. Just
what
saying.
I'm saying is, if you're
James
a lucid
Jones
kind of
and,
person, I don't understand how you can just.
Well, understand too. I think it's important that for every Charles Russell, there are 500 Charles Russell wannabes that for some reason just don't either have the charisma, don't have the talent, or don't have the connections. For every Joseph Smith who found gold plates in his backyard, there are all kinds of people who make claims of being talked to by God that people say, you're crazy.
You got 500 people that are searching for something that attracts them for whatever.
For whatever
Usually it's the charisma of the guy's speaking,
Well-
but it's
Now, I understand Jehovah's Witnesses would say the truth.
Something attracted me. But when they have nothing.
Yeah, that you don't find that appealing. Hey, next week though, we're going to talk about really and interesting. It is not spreading. It is not spreading. If anything, it's kind of dying. Because it is it's complicated. It's not easy, but we're looking at Christian Science, Mary Baker Eddy, and Science and Health. So that's what we'll look at next week.
Is that the ones that won't take blood transfusions and stuff?
They won't all. They won't.
Okay.
They won't do it.
Okay, I want to know about them. I